Director George Miller has suggested that Jack Nicholson is a devil of the 80s. Do we have witches of the 80s in Witches of Eastwick, and how might they be different from witches of any other time, as much as we know about witches? Michelle, can we take you first? Any thoughts on that? What's a modern witch all about?
Well, I imagine
know?
witches of all generations have all the same things in common.
What's the difference between men and women?
Cher?
I've never actually given it much thought until today, and I wish I'd given it more thought after all this. I think that, it's undescribable.
I think a witch is a witch is a witch. I think that
That's what I think.
his
Gertrude Stein
wardrobe
said
is
that,
maybe
I think.
different for the devil now, but I thought he was a classic. I would have bought him anywhere.
Would a witch
Anytime.
would witches and devils maybe be more vulnerable in the 80s than they might have
Oh,
been
I
a
think
couple
they
hundred
had a
years
hard
ago?
time even back then. They were just snatched them up and burned them back then. So I think they were pretty much more vulnerable
Yeah.
then.
Cher, I understand that many writers, and John Updike is not the first or the last, have suggested that women, all women, really are witches. It's just men haven't been let in on this yet.
Well, should we let him in?
What do you think? Is it time that we knew all this, that us guys
Right.
knew this?
Think
You know what I
handle it?
think, because of women having to be manipulative for such a long time, that there's a certain amount of witchcraft, or using your charms to get the things that you want. And I think now maybe it's easier to just ask for the things that you want, or actually, you just get the things that you want now. It's not important to try and use your charms. If I want something, I don't really have to ask anyone for it. I just go and get it.
I think letting men in on the birthing process has opened a lot of
Interesting.
doors. I think that maybe men won't need war so much in life and death in that sense now that they're sharing birthing experiences.
Do you think the biological mysteries of womanhood, then, Michelle, might be one of the things that men have fantasized as being magic?
Well, I certainly fantasize it as being magic. I think that it's very magical.
What could be
The
more
whole
so than
birth.
creating life?
I don't think that there's anything.
Meantime, today, trans-channeling, spirits in the air, there's a whole resurgence of interest in that sort of thing. Do you think Witches of Eastwick might help fuel that even more so? Let's start over here again.
Do I think it'll help fuel that even more so?
And are you involved in any of this? The mediums, the trans-channel?
No, I mean, I do think that we somehow, I mean, this is purely an emotional response, too. I certainly don't have any evidence for this feeling, but I think that we make things happen, and I think that we do it more than we realize that we do, and I think that there comes a time in one's life when you have to become aware of that, and in a very tangible way, too, not in a hocus-pocusy sort of way. I mean, I experience in my own life, for instance, that I have to be careful what I wish for,
Yeah.
because chances are I'll get it.
Now, could either of you two sit in at a medium or a seance and be serious about this?
Yeah, sure, I have. I'm serious about just about anything. I'm open to everything, but even in terms of medicine, I mean, all the sciences are opening themselves up to a much wider scope of possibilities. Homeopathic medicine, acupuncture, acupressure. I mean, I just
They're
think
all kind of,
we've been a little bit too greedy and gotten stuck in certain approaches to things because
I
they're
think they're not
financially...
as segregated
Yeah.
as they used to be. Things are all crossing over now into each other's territory. I
Sure,
think.
how about you? Are you prepared to believe in trans-channeling?
I'm prepared to believe in anything. I mean, truly, I'm so open. I don't believe that it's hocus pocus. I believe that if there are so many unanswered questions in the universe, and if we know so little, how could we be so, I mean, how could we not think that there are that's not a possibility? I'm not frightened of it at all either. I just feel, I feel that it's just a natural possibility.
And look how magical this would be to people 50 years ago. There your image is, out to millions of people all over the world, all at the same time. That would have been enough 100 years ago to have
Sometimes
branded you
I'm
as
on the
witch.
telephone and I'm talking to somebody in Europe, and the phenomenon
Yeah.
of hearing this person's voice across these wires or whatever,
How about being there, like being in Los Angeles one moment and being in France a couple of hours later. I mean, people would, if you told anybody at certain times in history, they wouldn't be able to believe it. Or putting a, I mean, you know, putting a man on the moon used to be a science fiction movie instead of another reality.
Wouldn't you love to see a movie like this maybe reawaken our sense of how extraordinary these things are?
I'd like to
Susan?
see it reawaken our sense of responsibility about power.
Interesting.
More than
I think that, yeah. I mean, there are stages the women are oblivious to their power in the beginning, and then they're awakened to that power, and then they learn that you have to be responsible with that power.
Finally, just a few seconds left on the set. Which was the wildest? The balloons, the feathers, the tennis game? What just drove you
I'd
up
say
the
the
wall?
scenes that were cut, wouldn't you?
Depends.
There were some
Depends on
hot
what your
scenes that
definition
never
of
got
wild
made,
is.
right?
Hot
Oh,
scenes
yeah.
set where? In the pool?
Oh, all over.
No, I guess I think one of the most, well, I don't know.
Fun? I mean, what
was-
is wild? What is your definition of wild? Are you talking fun? Are you talking
It
extravagant?
was
Are you
so
talking-
visually extravagant, I guess. With George Miller, anyway, you're risking that on every shot. There's going to be something extraordinary going on visually.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other subject, and we're out of time. I want to thank all of you for your time. The three itches of
Itches of-
Itches of which week?
They told me outside this is the witch's room,
Right.
but there may be lots of other witches out there. Who knows? We guys are going to
Oh, I'm
have to
sure
just
there
I
are.
hope the witches like it. I do. I really hope they like it.
And with these
Witches
three
of the
lovely
world.
ladies, I'm John Tibbetts for KCTV5 in New York City.